We're approaching the 140th day, ladies and gentlemen, since we first attacked Iran. Of course, it's not the 20 years we were stuck in Afghanistan, or even the 8 years in Vietnam, but honestly, we didn't plan to stay this long. So 140 days is about 139 days longer than we would have liked. So what happened? What went wrong? What now? Can this be fixed? And probably the most important question, can it be fixed in time? Then we need to figure out what in time means, right? What does a spoon is dear at dinner time mean when nobody needs the damn spoon anymore? Maybe such a moment exists. And I want to tell you right away that there is one amusing and astonishing detail in what's happening right now. It will open your eyes to people in general and to Iranian leaders, both military and non-military in particular. I promise you will really enjoy this. So, on February 28 of this year, naturally we began and carried out 40 days of actual bombings, followed by 100 days of negotiations, punctuated by tit-for-tat strikes. Of course, it was an eye for an eye, with missiles, drones, and so on, but for the most part we were negotiating. Is it right to negotiate? Yes, it is. Negotiations should always be conducted whenever possible. Military actions are simply a continuation of diplomacy when diplomacy cannot achieve the set goals and objectives. We don't know what the strategy of the U.S. president was at the moment he gave the order to strike, but after 140 days, we know what the current administration would like. As I understand it, right now we're trying to figure out how to accomplish our objectives, taking into account the reality in Iran. We know the president's main objectives. He wants to continue his reforms and steer America in the direction he believes is right, and I agree with him, by the way, which means maintaining control over Congress, because without control, his initiatives and agenda will simply be paralyzed. If the Democrats take the House of Representatives, they will immediately, on the very first day as they promise, start the impeachment process. Everyone understands that the president is protected from conviction because he has a majority in the Senate. But if he still loses the House, then the main task of the Democratic Party will be to make life in America worse. So much so that in 2028, no one would want to elect a Republican. The goal of the Democrats is not to improve our lives. The goal of the Democrats is to seize power. I'm not saying this in a negative way. Well, of course it is negative, but not in a negative way, because theoretically parties are formed to compete for power. Explaining this to the people, why their ideas surpass their opponents' ideas. The truth is, when people compete for power, they do everything possible to make sure their opponent isn't chosen. I emphasize everything possible. And this can include, well, dragging them through the mud, in other words, lying. And also, if the opponent is running the country, they do everything possible to make sure people are worse off while that person is in power, which is considered natural and understandable, but very unpleasant for the people, that is, for us. Now, these are the reasons why the United States of America started bombing Iran, because this also needs to be dealt with somehow. We have talked about this many times, but let's figure it out anyway. Ever since Iran went down the path of Islamic obscurantism, yes, well, I want to emphasize that I do not consider Islam to be obscurantism. I know too little to analyze or judge anything like that. I just believe that the version of Islam that exists in Iran today is Islamic obscurantism. So, all American presidents have stated, and it seems they have even taken at least the minimal possible steps to prevent Iran from acquiring weapons of mass destruction. Well, President Trump also made it his goal to stop Iran, so that Iran would not be able to produce nuclear weapons, would not be able to launch missiles across the entire Gulf, and would not be able to block the Strait of Hormuz. And since the international agency, the agency reported that Iran already has uranium enriched to 60%, and that in 5 or 6 weeks it may, whether it does or not, I don't know, but it may be able to produce enough. By the way, it already has 450 kilograms, which means it will be able to produce enough material to fill those 10 to 12 warheads and mount them, attach them, screw them on. I don't know, those same 12 missiles that he once bought from Ukraine, intercontinental ones, that is, the United States of America. In the U.S., Trump made the decision to launch a preemptive strike on Iran, because they kept shouting that as soon as we get it, we'll attack you right away and blow you up. And now they have it. Some people didn't believe it, some did. But after something happened with Hamas and Israel, it became clear that they should be believed. Yes, they should be believed. Now they've said they'll wipe everyone out. They'll wipe everyone out. You know the rest of the story. That's not what I'm talking about. The situation we're in now is different. We started with bombings. All the targets that are connected to the production of nuclear weapons. Then there were massive bombings, and after that, negotiations began. Negotiations that lasted almost 100 days stopped the military operations, but led to nothing. Exactly where we were at the beginning of the negotiations, that's where we are now at the end as well. With only one addition, we, the Israelis, took a breather, received new weapons, added the necessary missiles, while Iran cleared the debris, restored some things, moved some things, and also got ready for a new round of military actions. So basically, everyone took a break, regained their strength, and are ready to start fighting each other again. Naturally, Iran also had its own strategy. So Persians are generally known for being good negotiators, always having 2 or even 4 plans in mind. Their idea can be formulated as follows. If we can prolong this conflict, supporting it with missile forces and launches that are proportional and symmetrical, in other words, not escalating things further, we can buy time until the midterm elections in the United States of America. You see, Iranians are not idiots at all, really not idiots, and they understand our politics very well. Besides, they are naturally on close, friendly, and business terms with the leadership of the U.S. Democratic Party. The reasons are not important to us right now. There are quite a few of them, but the point is something else. We are talking about Iran's strategy now, so let's continue. If stalling the negotiations works, then we, Iranians, increase the chances that the Democrats will take the House of Representatives and will interfere, if not stop Trump altogether. And what's even more important, this could be the beginning of a new government in 2028, and then we, Iran, will be safe, just like it was under Biden and Obama, and we will quietly finish building our missiles. We will complete our atomic bomb, and then the world won't be able to touch us. And we will be able to do whatever we want inside the Persian Gulf without being afraid that someone might punish us for it. So Iran's strategy is very simple. To hinder Trump, help the Democrats if possible, create an atomic bomb, and scare everyone who is nearby or not so close to them. That was their strategy, to buy time. Who won? Well, we'll see in the end, but so far Iran has managed to survive because we stopped full-scale hostilities almost 100 days ago. And these tit-for-tat responses were ineffective in the sense that they did not stop the missile attacks on the Gulf countries and did not give us control over the enemy or the Strait. Now let's turn to the midterm elections and the internal situation in the U.S. Economic indicators. Domestically, the indicators continue to be surprisingly good, even though, so to speak, we have this kind of unclear war going on in Iran, right? Monthly inflation is almost at a historic low. Unemployment is around 4.2%, which is actually very good. GDP is quite strong. It's at 2.3, 2.4. That's pretty good. Under Obama, they used to say, don't even count on reaching 2. They said 1.9 was an amazing success. We have 2.3, 2.4 and say that's only half of what we'll achieve. Then they tell us, something's wrong with you. The stock market is high and the full effect of tax cuts, increased energy production, and deregulation is being felt along with foreign investments. Just a little, but it's already noticeable. That's why Trump believes that, along with redistricting and the Supreme Court's decision on gerrymandering, I've talked about this many times. What that is, please, if you don't remember, check it. Gerrymandering, or in Russian, probably gerrymandering. He, Trump, and the Republicans might have a chance to break the historical pattern, according to which 39 out of the last 40 midterm elections were won by the party not in power, meaning not holding the White House, the one that lost the White House in the presidential elections. I kept telling you that it was 23 out of the last 25, but then I looked it up in various encyclopedias and so on, and it turned out that there were 41 midterm elections. So the ones that were recorded with all sorts of information and so on, and in 39 of them were won by the party that had just lost the presidency. So Trump still believes he has a chance and he still wants to finish the operation and come back home. And the Iranians understand that. Some critics on the right say we're striking docks and the small mosquito fleet, hitting rocket fuel. But why didn't we do this earlier? I think the answer is simple. We didn't do this earlier because we started negotiations. Because when there's even one chance, 1%, 1 in a million, you still have to try to use it. We acted with restraint. We acted proportionally. Looking back, oh, why did you do that? Looking forward, you should always do it that way. We didn't want the oil fields in Saudi Arabia, the gas developments in Qatar, or the terminals in Bahrain to explode and burn. We wanted to put more pressure on Iran. We didn't want to turn this war into the largest regional conflict, which could almost escalate into a third world war. Well, maybe for now without nuclear weapons, but into a third world war. Because China is incredibly dependent on the fuel that comes from this region. If necessary, they will send their fleet. So far, things are unfolding in a way that China has no desire to send its fleet there. We'd most likely be able to defeat that fleet, I think. Yes. But for now, neither side has any appetite to figure out, so to speak, whose is bigger. So what should we do now? Now that diplomacy is almost exhausted it seems like, almost everything, I don't know, maybe there's still some small chance left, but that's it. And when diplomacy is exhausted, the guns usually start talking. And usually it's loud. And everyone realizes that to deal with Iran, you need to act without restraint or proportionality and destroy all its military capabilities. That would mean strikes on factories, on the industrial complex that produces these missiles. Some of it is underground, of course, but some is above ground. Their launchers destroy their fields where drones are stored. I don't know where they assemble them. Clear the corridor near the strait of all their air defenses, missiles, drones, and those small ships, like a mosquito fleet, right? They use them both to attack tankers and to mine the strait. Destroy all of this in a week or two with precise strikes on dual-use targets. Will Iran respond? Yes, it will. It will. Where will it strike? Right where it hurts most. Wherever you can imagine it hurts the most, that's exactly where it will strike, because they're not idiots either. Where does it hurt the most? These aren't American ships. Gentlemen, they'll shoot in this direction too, just, to show that they're also firing at ships, right? Why? Because ships are good at defending themselves and good at fighting back. But if they manage to hit one even once, imagine how much they'll celebrate and shout with joy. No, they'll target the gas and oil infrastructure of countries allied with America. These are the countries of the Persian Gulf, and bombing them would send oil prices toward $200 per barrel. If the United States decides there's no other way, then the B-2 bombers will fly again. They'll strike Mount Pickaxe, seal off areas suspected of storing enriched uranium, and hit bridges and parts of the energy system. And then what? You might ask. When the smoke from the fires caused by our missiles and bombings clears, and now we are entering the realm of guessing, or rather predicting. I think after bombing for another 2 weeks, and we've already started doing this, as you may have noticed, for about 4 days, the U.S. will announce that we've accomplished our objectives in the region. We will turn to our allies, both in the region and in NATO, and say, guys, Iran is now mostly neutralized. It no longer has an air force. You have 600 combat aircraft. Well, frontline ones as they're called. You have missiles, you have air defense systems, you have ships. You can easily protect yourselves, your oil, your gas, and your fertilizers from a significantly weakened Iran. You, the countries in the Persian Gulf, as well as Europeans, Japanese, South Koreans, Taiwanese, there are too many to count. You all want to use this strait. We don't need it at all. Well, we just don't need it. We went there solely to set Iran back about 10 years from making an atomic bomb, hoping that maybe the regime would collapse. It didn't collapse, but we did everything we could. Now we have plenty of our own internal affairs. We've largely, to a significant extent, cleansed Iran of filth, And now, if you want, of course, it's up to you how to get oil out of the Persian Gulf and deliver it to your countries. However you want, you can do it. We're not leaving. Please, we will keep an air contingent there. You need to send a few ships, and if you want, under our command, we always have forces in the Persian Gulf, thank God. You can transport your own oil tankers through those narrow straits that Iran controls. We have frigates. Actually, we can handle ourselves too. In fact, there are even a few that take turns entering and leaving the region. We can organize your operations in such a way as to keep the strait open. We can help you, but not do it for you. And it shouldn't be difficult, because Iran suffered huge losses after 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Until the end of the month, I think we'll be bombing. Well, we want to warn you that that's it. We have much more important things to do in our part of the world, and we're going back home. And our allies who were shouting with us that they wouldn't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons but did nothing about it. They didn't even help us when we turned to them. Let them now take some of the responsibility and ensure the openness of the strait. Invite whoever you want. Invite China, India, even Martians if you want. And now, gentlemen, as I understand it, you all had a rough idea of this. Well, except for my statement that in a couple of weeks, well, at most 2.5, we'll start leaving. Will this be a big announcement, or will it be a quiet, behind-the-scenes conversation? Will you just explain to the partners what's going to happen, or will there be some reshuffling? I don't know, but from my view, that's what's going to happen. So now we've finally reached the most interesting part, and perhaps in some sense the most interesting, the most important. Now I'm going to point out something to you that, from the perspective of human psychology, astonishingly explains the greatest mystery of what's happening right now in the Middle East. Pay attention to the unsolved mystery of Iran's struggle against imperialist invaders and Zionists. What are we there? Sharks, probably. Or maybe tigers. I don't know. And we're paper ones at that. Iran almost every day boasts about striking. Listen to this, Oman. The United Arabs. Qatar. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. Who else is there? Yes, the Houthis are firing missiles at Saudi Arabia. That's already happened, right? So these are all Muslim countries fighting against a Muslim country. Well, some are Sunnis, some are Shiites, but that's internal, just among themselves. Iran is fighting with other Muslim countries, meaning the Persian Muslim side against the Arab Muslim countries. Let's put it that way, right? Iran is also clearly fighting the U.S., right? They are firing at U.S. ships, at U.S. military bases, threatening to kill the U.S. president, and along with the president, threatening to kill a bunch of ministers, senators, and journalists. And by the way, they're not just making threats. And even according to FBI reports, Iran, yes, Iran, that's what the CIA said, and I think the FBI too, is organizing assassination attempts against the president. It seems like they've already uncovered these plots twice, the ones they were trying to set up against the president. And now the question is, who aren't they attacking? Which country isn't being targeted by Iranian missiles right now? Where aren't bombs going off? In which country's territory is Iran not even threatening to carry out terrorist acts? Have you figured it out yet? If not, it's Iran's main enemy, or the little Satan. Well, in our terms, we call Israel or the Jewish state the little Satan. So the biggest mystery of this stage of the conflict in the Middle East is that Iran is firing at Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, at American bases, at ships that belong to Indonesia, and it's not firing at its main enemy at all. Doesn't that seem strange to you? Doesn't that raise any questions for you? It does for me. Why isn't Iran attacking? They used to fire before. Why aren't they attacking now? Now, ladies and gentlemen, the most interesting part is about to begin. Iran is not attacking Israel for one very insanely simple reason, because Iran knows where they live, who they meet with, who they smoke hashish with, where they've placed their mistresses, and basically what they're up to. Not only everyone who leads the units, but also those who will replace them if the current leaders die. And besides that, also those behind them who will replace those who replace the current unit leaders. Israel knows where all of them live and everything possible about them. Israel knows about all of them, and they know it too. They were told about this. Over the past 4.5 months, Israel has rested, replenished its ammunition supplies, received excellent intelligence, and infiltrated the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, or rather has embedded itself in the army. Not only do they know and have infiltrated, but they also warned the guys. If you hit Israel, not just symbolically, but specifically civilian targets and energy infrastructure, then start wrapping yourselves in burial shrouds and crawl to the cemetery yourselves. Otherwise, we'll take the initiative ourselves. Therefore, now, as incredible as it may sound, Iranians prefer to attack other Muslim countries on the other side of the Gulf, and not to get involved with their so-called, their lesser Satan, their most existential enemy, Israel. That's what these clever and annoying Jews have achieved. Overwhelming deterrence, as it's called. This overwhelming deterrence is based on a very specific and very psychological trait of a person. People are afraid to die. The Iranian leadership is calm about a couple million citizens of their country dying easily. They don't really worry about buildings and structures, about providing people with water or food, or that thousands more boats or 534 planes are blown up into the air. All they care about is their own lives. That's normal. No, that's normal. And it's also normal to show that Israel can reach any of them anytime and anywhere. Everyone understands that only Israel can do that. And now, having said the most important thing we wanted to tell you, let's sum up. Current summary. Tomorrow brings another moment. Of course, things will change and everything, or at least a lot, will be different. Donald Trump has, let's say, 2 weeks to strike all remaining military targets. And then see if Iran is ready to surrender. If not, strike dual-use facilities. And then I think he plans to come back home and focus on the economy, leaving the breakout problem to the allies. And all of this is according to plan. But a caveat, if it turns out that they, the Iranians, still have a nuclear program, and I think it will turn out that way, we'll be able to do what we did last summer, namely fly there again once or twice or 8 times and bomb, and then come back again and bomb again. It has already been proven that Russian weapons cannot match or stop Western technologies that the US and Israel use and have at their disposal. In general, Russia should be terrified of this. In Syria, Russian air defenses simply didn't see the they didn't see the Israeli planes. In Venezuela, Russian defenses didn't work at all. In Iran, the sky turned out to be open, as if the air defenses bought from the Kremlin for huge amounts of money simply didn't exist at all. I just can't imagine who else would buy or will buy Russian weapons if they're thinking about protection from those who buy from the Americans. It's like if one country had slingshots and slings, while the other had machine guns, flamethrowers, airplanes, and all sorts of vehicles, native howitzers. So it turns out you have a hero with a slingshot against a howitzer. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we will end our broadcast for today, but I want to strongly suggest that you switch over and watch a video I recorded some time ago. And it has suddenly become incredibly relevant. For those who don't know, the Democratic Socialists of America have just released their party platform. They're not a separate party, just a faction within the party. But nevertheless, they've released something that strikingly resembles the platform of the party that was once called the German Socialist Workers' Party, or as it was commonly known, the Nazi Party. Please take a look at what I'm offering you. Just watch for 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes to start. If you don't like it, you can easily and naturally leave, but I think the point isn't whether you like it or not, but that it's become mandatory. Right now, without delay, go there and watch for a couple of minutes. The link will be below in the description. And besides, we'll put a little rectangle and ad right on the screen. Click it and go there. Goodbye.